All right, I got the sidewalks laid out. They're not glued in place at this point, but I've traced the buildings, know where I want them to sit. I know this is a totally different configuration from what you last saw, but my mind is ever changing. And actually, this last configuration of the buildings probably was in place for about 3 weeks. I once had a fabulous modeler tell me that he will usually let the town sit for about a month before he makes a decision on the buildings and solidifying them in place. I'm a week shy of that. But I just need to go through and trim or flatten some of the edges a little bit so they fit a little bit closer, but that's okay because later on I will weather them up and put some growth in some of the cracks to make it a little bit more convincing. But I'll get those glued in place once I've done that, and then I'll go ahead and move forward with the next step. All right, got everything weighted down after that torturous back and forth with making sure everything was as even as I could get it and making some adjustments along the way. Now I can finally take these weights off and get to the next step. All right, y'all, I'm back, and what you see here is the cake batter in place. So this is hydrocal that I've let sit for several hours. And I'm gonna go ahead and try to sand this down a bit. Obviously, I can't leave it like this. Let's see if this technique will work for me. So let me get this sanded and make a really big mess, even more than you already see, and see if we can't end with a nice, wonderful ending. All right, YouTube, I'm back with another update within an update. So as you can see, I have started to sand down the hydrocal, and it did leave some little indentations and imperfections that I'll have to go back probably with some kind of spackle and fill in. And the necessity for filling in the little indentations is because I'm not sure how much detail I'm going to do within the buildings, but I want to allow for that, and I would like to have a flat surface. I know for sure one of the structures will have some interior, so I'll need to make sure the foundation is flat, but that shouldn't take very long. I will say if I had this to do it again, I probably would not do it in this manner. First of all, like I said, most of this is going to be under buildings unless I decide to do any detail work. If I had some kind of foam cutter where I could just cut thin layers, I probably would have created the bases out of the foam. So that may be something in the future I need to consider getting, because I like the idea of having these foundations. And it also creates a lot of mess, a lot of unhealthy particles and plaster going into the air when you're sanding this. Of course, this was done outside. I may not have been here if I would have tried to do it inside. But after it's all said and done, I'm glad it's over, and I hope that the result that I'm trying to get will work. And I will not take on credit for this particular way of doing things. I actually saw online a modeler who uses the same technique, and he's done it on several areas of his town scene. So I don't know, he may be doing something differently that I didn't get from seeing his little write-up. But anyway, moving on. You can also see where I've started to chip up and break up the sidewalks. I also put the little sections where pedestrians go and cross the street so that they're not coming off of the curb. But you can see how on the sidewalks and the curbs I have destroyed them, and I still may not be finished. But I do that all up along the sidewalks there on both sides. You can see that. Looked at some photos to get these ideas. You also can get a closer look at the imperfections in the bases that I created, where I have to fill in with spackle and just smooth those over. They actually look worse on camera than they do actually in person, but nonetheless they do need to be filled in. So that is actually what I'm going to do next. And then we should be ready for painting at that point. All right, everyone, I'm back and I have begun the staining process. As you can see, the base as well as the sidewalks have been touched. The bases really do not need to be stained, but there may be areas, especially on this larger one here on the right, that may be seen. I'm not sure. Not a lot of space, but I just said while I'm at it, I'll go ahead and tone that white plaster color down. But the main focus, of course, is the sidewalks. And as you can see right here, I've used the Woodland Scenics Concrete item C1217. And I probably could have just went straight with it, but I did kind of water it down a little bit to create even a more of a wash, I should say. But that probably wasn't necessary, but I did it and I put probably about 3 layers down. So I've got a few more I want to add and see what that turns out like. Additionally, before I actually started to use the wash, I actually used gesso on the area. Randy over at Downtown Deco suggests that you spray paint this plaster, but I decided that I didn't want to try that, being that the base is foam and I did not want to start eating away at the foam by using spray paint on this area. So I tried the gesso, and it's a great medium to use if you're not familiar with it for stuff like this, as well as anything you're going to use a wash on. I should say terrain wise anyway. But anyway, so I think that's going pretty good. And we're back. And what you see now is the ugly stage. And I'm going to be honest, I did not mean for this to happen. But I added a couple more layers of that cement pigment from Woodland Scenics, and then I did a black wash, just one, and this is what we have. So it doesn't look very pretty right now. Actually, I don't want this section to be pretty, so I'm gonna have to I know what I'm gonna do to make it look better, but I wanted you to see this step so you can see sometimes what you have to encounter before you get to the finished product, especially when you're doing washes and things like that. So let me get to what hopefully will be the last step on this particular video, and I will be back. All right, ladies and gents, we are at the conclusion of this video, and here is the finished for now product. And just to take you a little closer at some of the detail, I went through and just did some dry brushing. I did a tan and I did a gray, and I really like how this turned out. Remember, this particular town is going to be pretty urbanized and wore down and damaged, and so the surrounding infrastructure has to complement what I'm going for. So we're not looking for pretty and neat and pristine. We're going for the wrong side of the tracks effect. So I am pretty happy with the results. So as I start to actually add all of the buildings and all of that on here, and of course get the roads put in, I'll come back and add debris and some weeds and some other details on the sidewalks to further complement the effect. But the next thing after this is to start building and detailing the buildings and getting them in place and take it from there. Okay, y'all, I think that's going to be about it for this update. There will be several more in this series of building the town on the wrong side of the tracks. So I'll begin adding structures, and then everything will start to come into place after that with all the rest of the detailing. But for now, this has been Dave, also known as Loving Them Trains. Later, y'all.